Thank you, everybody, for sticking around after Table Takes. Welcome to Gen Con Roundtable. This week, we're joined by Wizards of the Coast and a number of their writers and creators who are going to be part of D&D Live, and they want to share some of the kind of really unique and interesting elements of the show with us. So we have Greg Tito, Communication Manager for Dungeons and Dragons.
Hi,
We
everybody.
have Shahrang Biswas, the game designer, writer, and artist based in New York City. Apparently, you're best known for Feast, the Indiecade winning RPG, and for co-editing Honey and Hot Wax, an anthology of erotic art games coming out from Pelgrane Press this summer. I remember hearing about that, actually. Um, Ryan Omega, an event producer, live stream tabletop gamer, podcast producer, and host for Life Action Roleplay, a LARP podcast, which is now a Twitch talk show, and creator of Blank Slate, a live stream LARP that you currently have on hiatus now, but is still up on YouTube.
Yes.
And Minket, a British escape room designer who most recently designed the Good Omens escape room for Amazon Prime, as well as having designed board games for Hasbro. And you've been creating an alternate reality game, or you've been creating alternate reality games for over a decade now.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank all of you for joining us today. Greg, thank you for bringing them along. We've been trying to have you on the show for a little while now, so I'm glad we were finally able to make that work.
Me too.
And what do you have that you wanted to share with everybody this week?
So D&D Live is coming to your screens on June 18th, starting at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It is, a big pivot, as everybody knows, from the events that we've had in the past. We've needed to focus on a way to bring people together with the amazing, community building that D&D kind of inherently has with it to an online space. And so we have a lot of great live games with many actors and comedians that you might know from other entertainment kind of properties out there. We're really excited about all that. We're excited about the announcements that are going to come from where D&D is going to be heading to with the next storyline, as well as some amazing kind of crossover products and things like that that will be unveiled on June 18th.
Because D&D Live is that's your like once a year, like big news show where everything comes together, where you do a lot of the entertainment games, but then you also have a chance to share the storyline and the products that are going to come out in the latter half of the year, right?
That's right. Yeah. So it's a way to kind of align everyone and being like, this is the kind of flavor of storytelling that Dungeons and Dragons is going to be throwing out there. At the past, it was the Stream of Many Eyes, where we talked about Waterdeep and city-based campaigns and what that was all about. And then last year we had the Descent, which was devils and their infernal packs that they make, as well as
the soul coins and stuff like that.
Exactly right. And that, it's seeing the cosplay of all those folks in monstrous costumes and lots of red lights. There was definitely lots of red lighting throughout the entire event. So we're trying to do something very similar for this again, but in an online space. And so one of the things I'll talk really quick about Red Nose Day. Everything about this event is in service to that wonderful charity. They do have a great mission statement to try to help children who are affected by all types of crises, but especially right now from the COVID-19 crisis. And so we've got a t-shirt. You can buy this t-shirt right now. I'm wearing it. It's a snowy owlbear with a red nose on it. These are available for purchase. All the proceeds for that will go towards Red Nose Day, as well as an adventure, Return to the Glory, that's available right now in Dungeon Masters Guild. That all the proceeds for that also go towards Red Nose Day. And right now we've raised more than $10,000 total, and hoping to get that number up even higher for this amazing charity. And hopefully all the eyeballs that all of the entertainment people can bring onto this will drive that number up even more. And one of the things that you can contribute towards is signing up to play D&D Adventurers League games, as well as access to a map interface that we will be rolling out around D&D Live that will allow fans to interact almost like a Google Map interface and scroll around an area of a Dungeons and Dragons region and explore different nodes and find out more about what's happening with the setting, as well as perhaps play some single player text-based adventures. That's one thing that Shahrang is being writing frantically things for right now. And another big part of it is the reality RP version of this, which is bringing together 10 folks from the community, people you'll definitely recognize, not only from the Dungeons and Dragons community, but from other communities around the world. And they will be playing as characters on Instagram, on social media, interacting with each other, kind of like in a mashup between reality television gameplay, deductive role play like Werewolf or Mafia, as well as kind of puzzles, things that people can figure out through a collective thing with the ARG type design that Minket is bringing to the table.
Well, just to make sure that I'm following that, so these community, members are going to play characters, and those characters are on Instagram. So, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so if this they're playing in basically D&D Instagram, and you're following what these D&D character celebrities are basically doing.
Yeah, and they will be, creating their own videos, using handheld phone as well as their amazing cosplay talents to be able to bring this character to life. And throughout the programming of D&D Live, there will be moments in, I think, usually at the end of each day, in which there will be some challenges, and people will be able to more directly interact on a more of a programming basis in that way, almost like a short version of a reality television show.
Well, that was actually going to be my next question, because I think most of the news you've announced so far about D&D Live has been the schedule for the live games, where you're going to have celebrities or prominent people playing games that people could just sit down and watch.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like the reality RP is going to be a sit and watch a game for a couple hours thing. Is this something that people are going to engage with or interact with in between and while they're watching the other stuff going on for D&D Live?
Yeah, that's absolutely the goal. And maybe I can throw it to some of the designers to talk through how that was an interesting challenge to try to come up with something that could keep people engaged, not only by watching kind of the passive entertainment, but then, being able to actively participate.
Yeah, I think we want to stress that this is a very much an interactive thing. So viewers at home will have the opportunity to interact with them, and not just through like Instagram likes, but actually deciding on the outcome of the story.
In many ways, it's like, I don't know if this is an American thing as well, but that kind of murder mystery dinner party where everyone gets given, it's like the kind of most low level role-playing game that even people's parents and aunts and uncles may have played, so these community members are going to be like kind of embodying a character who needs to solve a mystery, but they need the audience at home to actually find those clues for them. So whilst they're exploring the region of the map that we've given them, the little things that we've hidden in the places as they explore, will give clues and hints that the audience at home can communicate to those characters, and then see how that plays out.
And so all this is through Instagram. So if somebody wants to participate, they have to sign up for Instagram?
It's going to be on the website itself. You'll be able to like keep track of a lot of it. But Instagram itself, you can see without creating an account. So
yeah, you won't necessarily have to sign up for it, but that is where a lot of the videos will be hosted. But again, there will also be part of the live stream broadcast will have the challenges dramatized for more public consumption.
And I think one of the affordances of doing D&D Live in this digital means is accessibility, right? That more kinds of people who might not be able to travel to D&D Live or in previous years will be able to participate. You can do so more passively by just watching, or more actively by doing interactions. If you don't have Instagram, that's fine. If you just want to do the single player content that we're working on, that's cool too. I think we've been trying to focus on this multimedia sort of idea that anyone can engage in any level that they want to. And we're really keen on that, because that brings in a more diverse audience. Like Mink was saying, even your great grandmother can join in this very light sort of role play thing and take part and be introduced to the world of role playing games.
Speaking of reality RP, I managed to have our first intro meeting with all of our actors where they got to meet and greet each other. And so many of them were so excited that, oh my God, I get to role play with this person. And we're just trying to figure out what do we want to do for costumes? What do we want to do for that interaction? One of them asked, how extra can we be in this? I'm like, go as far as you are comfortable for the next 3 days. As long as you're willing to do that, we're all in it. And we talked a little bit about the characters that they're playing, and they're like, "Oh, wait, what's the background of that?" I was like, "We'll get there." They're very eager. They're wanting to play their characters, and I'm so privileged to work with them on their characters, so that when we bring them to this event, like this will be the character that that you're going to see. They're going to be role playing with.
Well, so to kind of follow up on that, like this does, again, this seems like a big step away from sitting at a table and playing a game. Whether you're watching or playing, it seems like a big departure from that. But you from what you're kind of describing there, when you're talking with the actors about their characters and how they can role play them, I guess my next actor question is how much are the actors like role playing and kind of improving like you might at a table, and how much are you scripting, or how much are they performing a role that you have designed for them?
We start off with a bio of things that we know that work within our world setting. So
Sure.
they have something to root themselves in. Once we give them that description, I will work with each of the actors and say, okay, based off of this, what would you like to do with this character? And there will also be an added layer that's going to be added by like Minket and Elisa, so that the audience is able to find out things that interact with this reality RP game. So one of the interactions is for the Instagram actors to be able to find out things about who the culprit is. They're going to have to interact with some members of the audience who might deduce knowledge from some of these games that Minket and Xiaorong are putting out.
And some of that information might be wrong. That's the other thing too, is like they might deduce something that, the person who's playing on the Instagram character might be like, oh, this person in the community said X. They might actually be working for the other person and giving false information. And so it's this nice, you're right, it is not exactly about the D&D gameplay around the table, but it's an extension of playing something other than yourself.
During the event itself, how involved will your kind of creative team be in kind of guiding or answering questions? Or have you basically set up the scenario, set up the actors, and set up the community, and they're just going to kind of interact with each other as they see fit?
It's mostly the latter, but somewhat the former. So just to be able to have such fluid and quick improvisation, we're giving them as much of a grounding as possible to make sure like that they don't completely go off book and actually break the game, or just fundamentally conflict with the actual game universe. But like they've got, so I think one of the kind of really lovely things that our other co-writers, Elisa Teague and David Harmon, who couldn't be on the call, one of the lovely things that David kind of really brought to me, which I hadn't considered, was that these people are also, they're kind of almost the performers are playing their own game. So it's not scripted because they are playing an actual game themselves. They don't know all of the secrets. They know that they've got secrets, and so they probably assume that everyone else has. It's kind of like almost like Agatha Christie, because everyone's got some weird dodgy thing going on, and they don't know what it is. So the fun for them is actually figuring that stuff out, and the audience are going to be helping them, essentially like being I'm going down into the village to find out the gossip that an Agatha Christie character would do. That's going to be the characters being like, I'm pretty sure this person is saying something dodgy, I'm going to go and ask the public. That's that same kind of feeling. So as much as that, so whilst we will make sure that we're keeping control of the game, like a GM really, We want them to be playing and genuinely playing with each other as much as possible.
Well, honestly, it go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, and Mink has come up with some really delicious and juicy secrets, right? Some of the characters have really sweet, lovely secrets, and some of them are like insidious. And we all know this because we all play role-playing games, is that when you put a cast of characters with all these different secrets and motivations together, they will do things that the game designer never intended and thought of. And so Ryan, as our like LARP master, is also going to be there just in case, oh wow, the players just said something that's really interesting that we could do something with. And so we might be contacting the actors being like, by the way, you also learned this information, just to keep things cool and live and as juicy as possible.
Well, that's what I was going to say, actually, is what you're describing sounds most like a LARP to me. You have players, you kind of give them a situation, you wind it up, and then you release it and see what happens. And you're there on hand to step in when things seem to get gummed up, or to help like clear the path if it seems like it's blazing a new trail or something like that. But it's not unfolding according to like a grand plan that you had necessarily.
Well, there is going to be a structure,
way,
right? Like there is going to be a challenges on day 1 and day 2, and then, after some of the cast members get winnowed away, there'll be a kind of a final decision in the finale, with say only 3 out of the 10, still eligible for the choice. So that's where it's this mashup of LARP, as you say, but then also this reality television format and all the other things involved too. So yeah, Mink, you can talk more about the format.
Because we kind of took as our like first basis of a game mechanic that we wanted to kind of draw the feeling of werewolf or mafia. But there is obviously a fundamental disconnect with like we need it to last exactly 3 days, 3 rounds, as it were. And in werewolf, you just keep going until the werewolves are found or not. And so because we couldn't have it be an open-ended proposition, we had to create this structure that means we have as much freedom for people to play around in as much, and we can, without necessarily like limiting the amount of surprises that can be discovered, we can, with this structure we've created, make sure that it ends satisfyingly at the end point, and not too early and not too late. So that has been it's been a really, as a designer, a challenge for a designer, like to be able to like try and create the freeform thing, but also within like a properly timed structure. That's kind of it takes one of my escape room designer things of like, right, we have to create a really fun game, but it has to be over in 60 minutes. But
it can't be over in like 35 minutes or something like that.
It's got to be worth the money, but also they have to get to the end of the story. So it's going to fit into this time and to this space. So
I'm really proud of this, because as everyone who's watching knows, game design is a non-trivial artistic activity, right? This game has gone through like multiple iterations. There was like a resource management game at one point in the middle. There were all these different, at one point we're like, oh, are we going to collect wood? Like, let's keep track of the wood everyone has collected, right? So it's gone through many iterations in order to fulfill these like things. Like it has to be many players, it has to be accessible, it has to be 3 days, all these different considerations.
And then there are other considerations like you have to have access to internet. You have to have access to programming. There were things that became different challenges as a result of trying to create that same D&D live experience, but all virtual. Like my first D&D live was a couple of years ago in Waterdeep. And I remember walking into that place and my jaw dropping because it was magical. Like I got to meet people, they got to look, all the people who were performing their characters, they were geeking out because this was their dream. So I was trying to figure out, how do we translate all of that experience to our actors? Some of these actors, again, are familiar, so they know that experience, but as a result, they know what we're going for. We're trying to replicate that even under the duress of lockdown. And we're also going to lean a little bit into the cheese, because we could use a little bit of that right now.
Yeah. Well, not only can we use a little bit of that, but like that's the interesting kind of point of view that I always try to like remind people about, is that like I'm a very dark, serious horror gamer. I love that. But even when I'm playing the creepiest, weirdest game, at the table, you're gonna end up laughing and cracking jokes because just that's part of the fun of playing. So role-playing games to me have always very been much about being able to hold multiple kind of genres in your mind at once and appreciate them simultaneously, because if you can do that, you're going to be engaging on more levels of the game, and you're not going to get as frustrated when somebody cracks a joke. You'll be like, cool, that's great, and then you'll slide back into your character.
I mean, there's a great line in Curse of Strahd, which is my favorite 5th edition book, which says, it's GM advice, that says, if your entire campaign is one-note Gothic horror, that Gothic horror is going to lose its potency, right? You need to break that up with moments of levity and loveliness, and that will make the horror actually feel interesting. And I think that's a good example of what you're saying, Derek. And to bring Ryan, right now, we also want levity and joy because of the world situation right now. And I think we're on track to achieving that with this project.
Sounds very cool.
Yeah, and then what I was going to say was that the designers came up with this reality TV kind of format, and at first I was like, as I was more into the resource management, I really wanted to trade wood for sheep and all that, and have that be a really fun game, because I'm a strategy gamer in some ways too, but I don't necessarily like the formats of reality television. And so when we were talking this through, I was like, all right, well, there is lots of game elements that are interesting in reality TV that we don't necessarily talk about too much, but it's a lot of game design in those shows. So that I respected. But then I think it was Dave Harmon, who's been one of our designers on this too, who said well, there is going to be an element of a send up of reality television here. There is going to be some parody of that format that is going to be inherent in this. And then once I kind of got that, I was like, it made a lot more sense to me to combine the areas of fantasy role playing that D&D is so strong in with reality television to create something that is not specifically in either one of those camps, but could be something even greater by its synergy.
To explore that reality TV a little bit, because I'm kind of similar. Most reality TV was never really my thing. I don't really like it. A lot of it is it's just very spiteful sometimes, I think, but some of it is more interesting than I would have given it credit for. My wife is very big into reality TV. A lot of times she just wants to put something on in the background and she won't pay attention to it, but I can't not follow the story. So then she'll put it on, she'll go play Animal Crossing, she'll come back and be like, what happened? And I'll be like, I was trying not to pay attention, but these two characters made an alliance and they betrayed this other person. But so she, has been watching all these different kinds of shows. And there's definitely a spectrum on reality TV that I hadn't anticipated. There's some shows that are just very wholesome, where all the contestants just love each other. And it's just a real
takeoff.
Yeah, there's that one. I think the
Big Flower Fight,
Best in Bloom is the one right now, or whatever.
Oh yeah, Big Flower, but Best in Bloom is the award that they give. That one's amazing. I love what they create.
Oh, that was so
good. And seeing all the contestants kind of run to each other when they need help, or when they talk about the other contestants. Some of the fashion shows are really like that. I think the creative reality TV shows tend to be like that. But then even the classic Survivor, I was not expecting a lot out of. And then after you are forced to watch season after season after season, you do start to get a sense of okay, they need to form an alliance. They need to manipulate each other. It's about the perception of each other, and how long do you keep strong contestants with you against when do you cut them off so they're not a challenge to you. So when you as designers are putting together this D&D reality show, effectively, or a reality show in the D&D fantasy universe, were there particular reality shows that you borrowed a lot from? Was there a type of reality show you were leaning towards, or what lessons were you learning from some of the reality that you may have had to watch?
There was a very specific slant of it's kind of difficult. So that within the book that we can't talk about and the setting we can't talk about, there's certain emotional cause. There's a definite emotional cause, and that's the same for any book. Anything, there's a thing that the game has been designed to create a set of feelings. And so we were trying to find ways to generate similar feelings without going too dark. So making it be a reality TV show is like the fun version, the fun way to cause like really intense emotions. So the ones that we lent towards were the shows that like were designed to create those. And so they were also, like we mentioned Werewolf earlier, they're the games that are a little bit more like Werewolf. It is about kind of social deduction and elimination, and that kind of feeling of whether you can trust people or not. So there's the TV show The Mole, and The Circle, which was a new one for me, so I had to go and watch that. And wow,
But
that same feeling being forced
once you
to
started
watch
talking about this being on Instagram, I was immediately wondering if The Circle was one of the touchstones.
I think one of us in the team is actually a fan, like a big fan of the Circle. I think Dave is a big fan of The Circle, right? Or Ryan.
Ryan?
Okay.
Oh, Ryan's a big fan.
I've watched 3 different, the one in Brazil, the one in France, and the one in the US, and made a lot of comparisons. But it was interesting just doing all of that quote unquote research, because some of those elements did end up coming into the design of the game. Because part of it is they are all isolated and they only know what they know of other people. So it made sense that that was part of the template for this total design.
But of course, it's D&D, and as we alluded to, there's this whole mystery element as well, right? So Mink, for example, has designed this mystery part where players can, it's not just social deduction. Players can engage with the single player material and things as well, and try and discover clues to what actually is the answer to the mystery.
So another key component for a lot of reality shows is a prize people are competing for. Do either the attendee players or the actor character players, do they have a prize they're all competing towards?
Right now, we don't have any kind of monetary prize or anything like that kind of lined up. But we are in discussion of some things that we can potentially do so that the character that the community member is portraying, you might see again in the future, whether that be through D&D Adventurers League content or something in some of the streaming shows that we're doing or things like that. So it's kind of an idea. That's both a prize for the community member as well as the audience, because they will have a voice and be like, all right, well, we made our choice. This is the one character that we're going to be interacting with, for the next few months, especially as pertains to this storyline.
Cool.
There's an in-narrative reason. It's there is a quest objective essentially, and so the one final remaining character will kind of does win that. So they've got their narrative motivation for trying to win as well.
Very cool.
And of course, with both the reality TV and the single player content, there are a lot of clues about the upcoming adventure seeded into that. So you can have a lot of fun learning about the setting and figuring out, wait, what is that? Is that a hint for what's coming in the adventure? And if you're gonna play the upcoming adventure book in fall, even if you're not a GM, that could be really fun for you. You could be like, wait a minute, I remember, because everything is in the world. So you can be like, I remember this character randomly mentioned this thing, and my NPC in this game just mentioned this thing. Could they be linked? Dun, dun, dun.
But those clues will be for like details in the adventure. The adventure and the setting and the high concept stuff will all be kind of announced out of the gate on June 18th.
That's right.
Or is that going to be a slow reveal over the weekend?
No, you'll get most of the information about what the D&D storyline is going to be on June 18th.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, anything else that you want to share about that?
About the set, about what it is?
Oh, hey, I just said the question. You can interpret it how you
I
want.
have something I'd love to say that I'm particularly proud of in this project is that I'm really proud to be part of a team that Greg put together that's very diverse. We have people from multiple countries and multiple backgrounds collaborating. The countries part can be hard because of time zones. We have Australia, England, and America trying to do group meetings together. But
Yeah, that's a challenge.
we have a number of different backgrounds involved. Like Greg, when he called me, knows, for example, that my professional background is in indie games and LARP, right? Ryan's focus is LARP. Mink's focus is puzzle ARG. So professionally, we have a diverse team. Like ethnically, we have a diverse team, and I think that's coming out in the project. So, for example, the stories we have, the casting that Ryan is doing is highlighting that D&D is for everyone, which I think is very cool, and also that the settings that D&D in are also a diverse setting. So the setting we have includes stories of immigration, and there are people from other parts of the D&D world who are in this setting, and I think our stories are reflecting that. I'm really proud of being part of a team that puts that as a focus, because we want to show that D&D is for all kinds of creators and all kinds of players, even like Mink alluded to, your grandma who doesn't play role-playing games, right?
I think she said great grandma, which I'm like, yep. I mean, kudos to her who's still able to do it at 95.
Like, in the stories we have, we are centering like people who are not often represented in traditional role-playing game things, and I'm really proud of the team that Greg put together to be able to do that.
Well, I think from what you've been describing about how you're structuring this, where it's kind of a multi-layered story that people can explore kind of to the degree that they want, coming at that with a diverse team and then making a diverse story. Like, I don't want to say it's more important than it is normally, because it's not, but like, I think that story structure really exposes the value of that kind of diverse team, because there's when you're trying to build a story that can be interfaced with in so many different directions, having that perspective of kind of a wider team that maybe isn't so close to each other in perspective makes it a lot more holistic, I think, in a lot of ways, or that's what I would expect to happen.
Yes, I very much agree with that.
And for me, as just, communications for D&D, my goal has always been like, how do I find more inroads for people to get their way into this hobby? And the events that we've done over the past have been a big part of that. We brought more people from the cosplay community into coming to D&D lives in the past, as well as through LARP and all that type of things. And so you guys mentioned this earlier on in the call, but I'm really excited about the fact that you don't need to be in a physical location in Southern California to experience this amazing game design. You can be from anywhere on the International Space Station, as long as you have access to internet, to be able to interact with it. And again, to your point, Derek, that you can do it as much or as little as you want. There's so many different gameplay types involved in this project that it can be just simply being able to explore a map. Like I like to do that sometimes just on Google Maps on my own, and you'd be able to do that in a fantasy world. That feels really fun to me. I might not even want to interact more than that, but then there's these breadcrumbs that will allow me to be like, oh, well, this is interesting. Oh, and then this character is from this area, so maybe I want to research that. But then all of a sudden you're go down the rabbit hole of watching all that character's videos that they've been posting over the last few days, and then all of a sudden you're very loyal to that character, or then you find out that you don't like them for some other, so all of a sudden you get drawn in, and I love that this game is all about that.
You're definitely that person who spent hours in the Middle Earth Google Earth thing, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah,
I am that person.
Yeah. Very funny, Derek. Yes, it's true.
Yes, no, very, very true. Maps are just great for storytelling in general, I think, in my opinion, because they have a graphic representation. You know what you're looking at, but then they can be such windows into another reality. And so that's one of the things we're really trying to do with this reality RP game.
I mean, there are entire role-playing games that focus on map making, right? Indie role-playing games that do that, and because maps are cool.
Yep, A Quiet Year is one of my favorites. But like,
exactly.
When I was a kid, I was absolutely obsessed with maps. You go to the half-price books, or you go to the bookstore, and you just crack open the fantasy novel to see just what the map looked like. And some books leaned into that more than others, but it was always a thing that captured my imagination when I was a kid.
And the setting that we have is very location based. Like the
Mhm.
location has its own personality. You'll see when the book is out. And I think we as game designers and writers for the project have been leaning into that. We're like, okay, what are the stories that are this location specific? What are the, as Mink alluded to, the themes of this location? So
I feel like you're leading me a trail of breadcrumbs to try to get me to guess and figure out what the location
You now
and
have
what the
all the
setting
clues
is.
you need.
I don't want you to do that.
yeah,
That is not what we're
Mink is
trying
a
to do.
master puzzle designer. We'll neither confirm nor deny any of your guesses.
Curses.
But I did want to point out, there's two other members of this team that did not make the call. So Elisa Teague is doing a wonderful job in creating puzzles along with Mink on how to interact with it. But beyond that, she's been a wonderful kind of guiding force for a lot of this holistic project idea as well, of like, how are we this is gonna interact with this. And she's been at previous D&D lives as well, so she's seen the progression in that community, as well as knowing a lot of the cosplayers. And she was the designer behind No Stone Unturned, which was the ARG that was leading up to Waterdeep. And so she's got a lot of that kind of community kind of already clamoring for more stuff like this. So she's been fantastic. And then David Harmon from Australia. He's the dungeon master of Dragon Friends. So we've been working together for a whole bunch of time, but he's always been pitching some of these mega game and LARP games that he's been doing in Australia, having to do with zombies and things like that. I mean, I've always been trying to figure out a way to use that type of game design expertise in anything like this. And he's been a really great resource for this team and coming up with the structure for how we're going to bring things forward.
So is there anything else that you want to talk about with the reality RP in particular, in specific?
Ryan, how are we doing on costumes?
Because we had just our intro meeting today, I think a lot of people are a little, oh my God, what are we doing? I did decide to hold off on giving them their bios because I don't want one of them who is the person who is guilty to suddenly blab it out. I'm like, nope, let's be strategic about this. However, one of them did ask if they were allowed to have confessionals like reality TV, and I said, yes, absolutely.
I mean, we all know characters ground stories very often, and I think we've been spending time figuring out these characters. Even in the single player parts, we've been figuring out what are the characters, because people empathize with characters, and games are a way of exploring how people would react to dragons, maybe, but how would they react, right? So
very cool. What about the other aspects of D&D Live? Because we have another 15, 20 minutes or so to kind of talk with the four of you. You touched on a little bit about Wizards' efforts right now about Red Nose Day and stuff like that. How is that kind of charity fundraising? Does that tie into D&D Live? Is there part of D&D Live that's for that, or is that something that you're working on leading up to D&D Live?
So for signing up for the D&D Adventurers League games, as well as access to the map layer that we've been talking about here, we're asking for a $10 donation to Red Nose Day. So that's essentially like what a ticket would be to be at this event. All the video programming, everything like that is going to be freely available on all types of platforms. But we're asking for that donation to make sure that there's a buy-in, that there's definitely like an investment by the fan to want to participate in all of this, as well as raising money for the great cause that Red Nose Day is. We're excited about that. I think the D&D Adventures League, we've been talking to one of the designers, Sean Warren, who has been writing those. And at one point they were a lot more integrated, and now they still are an important part of this. So some of the gameplay that is happening in those adventures, and there's going to be 4 of them, introductory, hour long. You can sign up hopefully next week. We'll have more information about that, but a new sign up service that we're calling the Yawning Portal will allow people to program out their gameplay over the course of the weekend. And some of the information that or setting information they might get from playing those adventures might impact things that they might want to bring to the reality RP table and things like that.
But just to make that explicit, because I hadn't seen that in the news before, During this weekend, while you're having Reality RP and while you're having celebrities playing games, you will also have Adventurers League games that people are presumably run digitally that people can sign up for and participate in through that weekend as well. So
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So
it'll start at I think we're starting at 2 p.m. on Thursday, June 18th is when the first games will be scheduled. We've got professional dungeon masters working with Bald Man Games, who has been doing stuff at conventions as well as at
yeah,
D&D
I've worked closely with them for a long time.
Yeah, they're fantastic, and so they're hiring a lot more amazing DMs, and hopefully ones that will be able to play on whatever group's platform of choice. So if you are a Fantasy Grounds player, you'll be able to play this content on Fantasy Grounds. If you're a Roll20 player, you'll be able to do that through Roll20. If your group just prefers Theater of the Mind style, there'll be Dungeon Masters who will be able to do that, and you can sign up for them either as a group. So if you're like, hey, I've got my group of 5 people, we always play together, we're going to do all of these 4 adventures together in that way, or even repeat them potentially. Or if you want to just try to, we've got 2 people match make together and find a group that way. And that is all going to be going on, I think, for the 4 days. It'll be from June 18th until Sunday, the 21st.
And so that's an evolution, I think, of D&D Live, because the Stream of Many Eyes was 2 years ago, right? Or 3 years ago?
It was
Waterdeep was 2 years ago, right?
Yeah. Stream of Many Eyes was Waterdeep 2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, and so that one, if I recall correctly, you did a lot of work on the set. You created this incredible set, and then you played a bunch of games on it. But there wasn't a lot of opportunity for the public to come and play games.
Correct.
And then last year with Descent into Avernus, that was a large component of it. And now that is going online, theoretically, the capacity for that can be much larger. Do you have a sense of how many players you think you'll be able to accommodate? Is that something that you can share, or are you just trying to take as many as you can?
I mean, that's one of the hard parts about organizing an event in general, but also one in this unique time. So we're planning to scale, like we obviously want to have as many people as possible be able to jump in and play these games. So, we're planning for a lot of upside, and that the fact that it is going to be open to so many people and not locked into a physical location, we think that there will be a lot more interest in that. So I'm not going to tell you exact numbers of what we're planning for, but we're very excited and hope as many people as possible will jump in and play. But
this might very well be a chance for somebody who hasn't been able to kind of directly engage in some of the convention feel of Adventurers League, have a chance to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I said, you mentioned the kind of evolution, and I think that's an interesting way to think about it, because that's how my mind has been, kind of framing this, because even as regards to Reality RP, because the Waterdeep, we had those on off the table sessions, we called them, where they were this heightened combination of cosplay, LARPing, and Dungeons & Dragons play that Ivan Van Norman as the dungeon master was able to guide people on their feet playing as a party on the streets of Waterdeep. And then the shift to allowing people to play D&D, we really like the epic feel of playing in the 3 sessions of the D&D epic during the Descent. But there was, you were locked into playing for 3 hours, right, with the same group. And that was the only session you could play, which many people love that type of gameplay. But I wanted to see what it would be like for an event like this to have those smaller bite-sized adventures, having 1-hour sessions. So there was a little bit less of a buy-in on time. But if you wanted to play all 4 of them, you would get that 4 hours of content for introducing this storyline. So it is an evolution, trying to see what hits the audience in the right way. And then the fact that we're bringing so many potentially new audience members into playing something like this for the first time. Hopefully these introductory adventures that Sean Merwin and the D&D Adventurers League have been creating will be played by as many people as possible.
Yeah, those short introductory adventures remind me of the approach that you have taken at PAX a number of times, and the Flan series of adventures that were kind of part of the first launch of 5th edition. So I have a feeling that a lot of the hardcore players who have kind of been following a lot of the live events will probably be used to some of the basic formatting.
Yeah, and those adventures are also super diverse in what they're like. Some of them, one's more combat based, one is more role playing based, and so it's really about figuring out the different pillars of D&D play, and so we're hoping that is another bridge into more people coming into this hobby.
Cuthbert 2 in chat just wanted to thank you, Greg, for giving a cause for them to be happy to donate to participate in the whole thing. So they just wanted to chime in and give you those kudos.
Oh, well, thank you, Cuthbert. You've got the right handle for a righteous cause.
What about some of the other things that you're doing? The adventure that's on the DMs Guild, from what I understand, is a little bit different than normal. It's very orc based. You're supposed to play a party of full orcs, is that right?
That's right. Yeah, it's for I think 5 to 6 player characters from 6th to 8th level. So giving some fun agency to a different kind of story, and excited to see the reaction to that.
Okay. Well, so with a few minutes remaining, do we want to do kind of the usual fluff questions where we ask each other which classes we would normally be, which races we tend to make the most? Does someone want to dive into that and kind of talk about some of their typical or favorite characters, maybe?
I'm
Sure.
I think this will be fun.
Yeah. Well, when I was younger, I always wanted to be known as the mysterious, enigmatic person. It was never true. So I would like to think of myself as a warlock, but most people would say, no, I'm a bard. I'm just like loud and not very subtle and kind of obnoxious that way. Though my singing voice isn't that good. And I don't know. I mean, I really want to have another arm. So being a loxodon sounds really fun because I have a giant nose with which I can manipulate things. But also, like, I've been really gravitating towards being part of the Shimmick Combine because, like, then you have best of all the worlds. You just like grow a vat of tentacles and then attach them to yourself. So let's say a Shimmick bard scientist.
Okay. What about you, Mink?
Well, I'm relatively new to D&D. I've only been playing for like maybe 2 years, but so I currently have a druid called Karen who's always right about everything, even though she's not.
That seems a little timely. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah. She is also, so she's kind of from that village in Midsummer. So she's a druid, but she's like a kind of naughty druid. And when I hit level 5 and could multi-class, so it turns out that she actually is possessed by a demon that she doesn't know about, who's Cockney, and is a warlock.
Cockney demon!
So there's multi-class. So there's Karen, who's all very pretty, and she's like, oh, I fucking kill him, I don't care. And she doesn't know about it. And I played for like several sessions before the Cockney one came out, and then the other players also didn't realize. It was like, wow, Karen gets real feisty. She gets Cockney when she's angry. And there's like me and the DM just kind of looking at each other, going like, yes, that's Karen. But yeah.
Has Karen.
See, the value of diversity. Without Mink, we wouldn't know as much about Cockney demons.
That's canon, by the way. All demons have a Cockney accent.
Has Karen asked to see the dungeon manager yet, or have you not escalated to that level?
Well, she did act. Yeah, she does do that kind of thing. Yeah. She robbed a shop, but she got someone else to do it. So yeah, yeah.
How about you, Ryan?
Didn't get in trouble for it, basically.
So I remember when I was first brought on to role play on the D&D channel on a show, they specifically wanted me to play this wizard because and I was a known LARPer at the time. And they had this theory that LARPers would be able to know the system very well and be able to roleplay their ass off. So ever since then, I've been partial to wizards, especially since the wizard was Chilton, and Satine Phoenix and I are both Filipino. So we had this very Filipino bent to this character. And so I would talk like this. This is Dr. Imporo and he is going to throw a fireball at you because you do not deserve life, you know. And I love being able to have that accent on screen because it was kind of a, you know, it was a nod to my own culture, but bringing that culture into a character on D&D meant the world to me. And so I've been partial to Wizards ever since.
I really like this idea of bringing our own cultures into it because, for example, when I run D&D, all my dragons have Sanskrit names, right? Because I'm always like, even if I'm running a published adventure, I change the names of the dragons because I'm like, dragons are really, really old and ancient. Why would they have a name like this? No, they have a really old name. And my favorite part of that, of course, is a very few of my players are Indian, and watching them struggle to say the Sanskrit names to the dragon's face, which could offend the dragon a lot, is always a delight.
Wait, is that why dragons' names always have X's and apostrophes in them?
I mean, the names I've seen don't look very Sanskrit, so I just Sanskritize them a bit more.
Excellent.
But yeah, similar idea, I think.
What about you, Greg?
Well, I've been dungeon mastering a little bit more recently, but I do have a really fun group that I'm playing with called they're all kobolds, and so many of them have been dying through. We were playing through some of the adventures in Tales from the Yawning Portal, and so it doesn't matter if they die. They just we have the eggs from the next kobold. Create a new one, and so part of the thing has been how do we transport eggs from adventure to adventure? What's that, Sharon?
You have kobolds going into the Tomb of Horrors?
We have not done Tomb of Horrors yet, but we did do Forge of Fury, and we're jumping into the next one soon. But so my Kobold Artificer, which I've never played an Artificer before, so that's been super exciting, has the Homunculus feature now. I just got to 6th level. So the Homunculus I created actually, at first I was just like, oh, it's a incubator for the eggs, so I don't have to carry them around anymore. We can just keep them in this Homunculus that's also able to do some fighting and whatnot. And then one of the other players said that they had the image of the robot from the Jetsons, the robot maid from the Jetsons, and
Rosie.
so that's what my homunculus looks like.
Sounds like your campaign is basically just like Goblin Quest. If you've never checked out that indie game,
So Grant Howard, who wrote Goblin Quest, is a GM of one of my other games. So I was like, yeah, we play things, but not like that.
It's been fun just to have, and then it's a group that we were playing through Descent into Avernus with. So it's a little bit more serious, that campaign. And this one we were just like, let's just get together and run some crazy characters that we're not necessarily latched onto. But my Artificer survived over the last 3 sessions while all the other player characters have died. So now I'm actually getting really attached to this character, which means it's going to die in the next session.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Exactly. But the Artificer has been super fun. I really enjoy the way that it's so in the flavor, in the the mechanics are still very spells like, and you can do that. But so, casting Featherfall, for example, I had the image of creating a sail, with stapled together muslin on wood 2x3s, right, to kind of keep it going, and then that's how he's able to cast Featherfall and go down. And so it's been really fun.
Yeah, well, for me, I think I have to kind of go with Sharong, where I always wanted to be the warlock. I always wanted to be the one with like the forbidden knowledge and the deep dark secrets. But what I think it really just boils down to is I love games with secrets and betrayal, so it's harder to not telegraph that than to just take the warlock class. Like, yeah, everybody knows what's going to happen.
I mean, if you like secrets, you like D&D Live. There are going to be a lot of secrets in there. So,
well, I think we are about at the end of our time, unless there's any other secrets that any of you would like to share with us on stream.
Well, the only thing I would like to say, just I want to kind of echo what everyone has been saying, which has been a really wonderful experience working with these designers. It was kind of just a crazy idea in my head that they were able to crystallize and go above and beyond, just like all players do, and making something really special. It did, as alluded to, it did start from something very different, and it is now something that I'm extremely proud about, and I can't wait to show off more details about it and get people to experience it when D&D Live happens starting on June 18th.
Well, I think that's one of the magic of role-playing games, is that you sit down at a table and you play with your friends, and you end up making a thing that is different and probably better than what you would have ended up making up on your own. But thank all of you.
Experience.
Thank all of you again for joining us, Greg, Ryan, Sharang, and Minket. I can't wait to see what happens at D&D Live. And my wife, the avid reality TV fan, will probably be very excited too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Derek.
Thank you again. Everybody else who's watching, remember that we have lots of other shows on Gen Con TV. On Monday nights, we have the Brothers Mirth, who play board games together. On Wednesdays, we have Paula and Matthew, who play a board game online, because one is in London and one is in LA. And then on Wednesday evening, we have Fireside with Peter Atkinson, and this season he's still going through the history of the development of 3rd edition D&D. So if you're curious about the history of D&D, he's bringing a lot of the people who were there at the time and having remarkable kind of conversations of just what it was like, what the transition from TSR to Wizards was like. So you should check that out. And then on Fridays, we have Table Takes at 2 p.m., where we try to talk about news and what's happened recently, what's on Kickstarter that you might want to check out, bundles to go look at. And then the Gen Con Roundtables we have now, where we talk about one or another kind of special topic that seems to deserve a little bit more time. So again, thank you to Wizards for sending all of you out. I hope you had fun with us, and we'll be looking forward to D&D Live.
Woot!
Yay.
Yay, thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.